Everyone knows what a Tamagotchi is, as these toys were ridiculously popular in the 90s and even into the early 2000s. Their pocketability, their many designs, cheap price, and gameplay allowed this to absolutely soar in terms of sales, achieving a total of 91 million units sold worldwide. As of June of 2023, the Tamagotchi was so popular, in fact, that it inspired a re-release in 2017, and it has remained quite popular to this day. The original 2 gens at least. But there's no denying that the design of the main gameplay mechanic of the Tamagotchi made it quite addicting to so many. So what about it made it so appealing to consumers? Why were so many kids so addicted to these? How have these evolved to this day? And was I able to raise my Tamagotchi as an adult? These are the questions that we seek to answer in this video. The Tamagotchi is ridiculously simple, which allowed it to sell for so little. In other words, it was easy to pick up and use from just about every angle. Tamagotchi are shaped as ovals in order to resemble eggs that hatch. On the front, you will find 3 function buttons and the display. On the back, you will find an entry for the battery and a reset button. Now that display is very small, being a 1:1 screen, and it uses a monochrome LCD display, and it only runs at a resolution of 16 by 16. It's essentially the same as using a calculator, as the sprites are already drawn on your screen, but you will only see the pixels that illuminate. However, earlier models did not use a backlight, so using this under all types of scenarios isn't always possible. So tough to see at night or in a dark room, for example. This being such a low-powered device with very little technical demands at all, these get away with using a CR2032 battery, which will more than likely last you around a year, and this device always stays on as long as it has a battery with enough energy. The overall design is extremely simple, but the magic happens in the gameplay. Upon powering on your Tamagotchi, you will be met by an egg, and you can't do anything until you put in the current time. As such, you will be placed on a timer, and once it elapses, your egg hatches and you will finally meet your Tamagotchi. Now you have to keep this creature alive for as long as possible until it grows. In order to keep this Tamagotchi safe, you have to feed it burgers to fill the hungry meter and cakes to fill its happy meter. Now these do deplete very quickly from my experience, so check back in as frequently as you can to keep it alive. You also have the option to turn lights on or off depending on when your Tamagotchi goes to sleep. You can also play games with your pet to keep it happy when it's bored, and even give it medicine when it's sick. Whenever it poops, you can wash it all away and even check on its stats, including its age and weight. You can even call your Tamagotchi to get its attention, or to discipline it, or just quickly check what its mood is. You'll have to consistently keep track of this little guy, and luckily, he will always let you know when he needs something. Nebula and I should have a long run together. But I wasn't joking when I said that there was a lot to do in order to keep it safe. If you're not consistent with your treatment and attention to your pet, he will get sick, or angry, even exceedingly hungry. And this can happen at just about any time of the day. When you miss an opportunity to take care of your pet, it accumulates a counter against you, and these add up quickly. Eventually, your Tamagotchi will die. Most people did lose their Tamagotchi due to mistreatments, as this is a kid's toy, and kids have to go to school, or might have their Tamagotchis taken away for one reason or another. This unfortunately caused most people to lose their pets, and they'd witness the most brutal death scenes in the history of toys. What made it brutal is that a lot of kids felt pretty bad when their pets died, because they did spend time taking care of their pets. As such, you don't want to lose the pet that you've worked so hard to raise, right? That's when most start over. From my experience, it's difficult to keep track of your Tamagotchi, as you just can't always pick it up to check on it. If you're a child, then it's likely because you're at school, and if you're an adult, then it's likely because you're at school or at work. But you were always meant to watch your Tamagotchi die before your eyes. It's been well documented that even if you do take perfect care of your pet over the course of how long you're able to, eventually your Tamagotchi will die from old age. So even under perfect circumstances or during your summer vacation, you will have to say your goodbyes, as its destiny has already been predetermined. Once that happens, you can only start over again. Most of its consumers did try again to apply what they learned from their previous endeavors with their last pet and apply them to their new one. But this only caused a loop, as your pet would be born and then die over and over again until you got tired of playing with it. That's the gameplay mechanic that we're dealing with, and we can see how this became so addictive, as everyone works so hard to keep these pets alive for as long as possible. However, Tamagotchi changed in many ways throughout the years, and it had many significant changes. So contrary to what I thought before doing research for this video, Tamagotchi never stopped being made, technically. In fact, we have so much variety in the models as they continue getting updated over the years. We first received the Generation 1 Tamagotchi in 1996, just to be met by the Generation 2 models 4 months later. These were very similar and are close to being identical in functionality, but the Generation 2 offers a new background and many new designs to work off of. The one I purchased is a re-release of a Generation 2 Tamagotchi from 2017. Later on, they added many different ones such as the Angelgotchi and then the Genjincht. Angelgotchi was much more popular than this other model, as Angelgotchi felt like the natural evolution of Tamagotchi. The popularity of Tamagotchi was so huge that they even released a Game Boy game for it, where even if the game is turned off, the cartridge will beep to get your attention and so that you can take care of your pet. All of these were just small examples of how they continued finding new reasons and excuses for releasing new Tamagotchi models. All the way up to 2004, they were releasing new models, including one that was called Tamagotchi Connection, which was definitely a step in the right direction as you took two Tamagotchi and linked them through a wireless infrared connection. Around 2005, they introduced Tamagotchi with higher resolution displays, as now our models on screen are more detailed and not as blocky as before. However, it seems like for many years they simply were not adding enough to Tamagotchi in order to keep them interesting enough, as they mostly were just gimmicks, including a Tamagotchi with a touchscreen that came equipped with a stylus, released in 2005, a newer Tamagotchi with different colored LCD from 2006, another one released in 2007, which was marketed to adults to link their Tamagotchi together and see some unique animations when done so. Another one that was meant as a companion device to a game called Tamagotchi School from 2007. Then in 2008, they released a Tamagotchi with a colored LCD known as the Tamagotchi Plus Color, which was so much more detailed and vibrant than any other model we had seen before this. The examples I just presented were just a few of the many models released in between and even after. And as such, these releases continued as they kept adding many more gimmicks and features to new iterations, but the release cycle became a lot slower than usual, as now we get between 1 to 3 new models every year, instead of the frequent occurrence that we were used to in the late 90s to early 2000s. They were releasing Tamagotchi with app support, more detailed games and displays, brighter screens, easier methods of connecting between models. Then the latest ones of most importance, besides the mini models that release to let you carry many, and I mean many of your favorite anime characters with you, we have the Tamagotchi Pix, which lets you take a picture and the top of the shell acts as a shutter button and was released in 2021. I will surrender my iPhone any day of the week for this, for like 5 minutes. There was even a smartwatch version of the Tamagotchi known as the Tamagotchi Smart. It's quite surprising to see so many different mechanics being added just to add a new spin to the original mechanic, and they've only kept building upon each model ever since. So I think I need to mention this. I was convinced for a very long time that they stopped making Tamagotchi. I think it's just that I never owned one as a kid, and since I lived in a different country as a kid, far from the city where those big toy stores were, I don't even remember seeing them often at all. As a kid, I only knew that these existed because my cousins who lived in the city area had them. But when they stopped playing with them, I stopped seeing them altogether. By the time that I moved back to the US, I didn't care enough about Tamagotchi to go out of my way to find them in many different stores. But evidence shows that they never actually stopped making them, and there were constant releases dropping pretty often. However, I'm not the only person who felt this way. I'm a grad student in his late 20s now, and recently I brought my Tamagotchi to class because I wanted to continue writing for this documentary, and my classmate next to me saw that I had one and went, "Is that a Tamagotchi?" as she simply hadn't seen one in a very long time. Now, part of the reason why this is the case is just that gimmicks like these are not as impressive anymore for most kids today, at least compared to playing on the latest hardware and using smartphones and tablets with the many apps and games that those carry, most of which are free. But there definitely still is a market for these, even in the United States. Some kids definitely still care about Tamagotchi, especially about collecting them, and it even seems like the 2017 re-releases of Gen 1 and Gen 2 Tamagotchi are the ones that they usually go for. These are still toys that are surprisingly popular, and I even imagine that they are much more popular overseas. Now, to me, this wasn't a way of reliving my childhood, but instead to fill the void of something that I knew was missing. So I purchased my 2017 re-release in preparation for this video. I did feel somewhat of a spark that reinvigorated my desire to care for something that I immediately became attached to, my new pet, Nebula. I did everything I could, keeping this guy near me, and I noticed myself frequently checking out my Tamagotchi. However, there were many missteps that I had no way of addressing, particularly when my Tamagotchi refused to take medicine every time he became sick. Then he would just move on, and I thought that was the end of it. But suddenly, I returned to my bedroom after going upstairs to get the mail. Then I check on my Tamagotchi to see that he's taken a new form. I thought that he had evolved, but all I could do was check how old he was, and nothing else. Nebula perished just shortly after coming to this world, and his death was certainly mourned. And after finding this out, I thought that my Tamagotchi simply wasn't disciplined enough to accept the medicine when he needed it, and that's why I think he died so quickly. So I was compelled to try again, and again, and again, passing through Nebula 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0, until I eventually got tired of it all. But it is the anxiety that the first and second generations of Tamagotchi instilled into so many people because we didn't want our pets to die. But even then, depending on what kind of person you are, you will more than likely be compelled to restart and begin anew, just like me. So having spoken to so many people in my personal life who owned a Tamagotchi as children, they recall being absolutely obsessed with this mechanic, with the constant loop of going through and taking as good care as you can of your pet as possible to keep it alive for as long as possible. But everyone eventually saw this death sequence, at least if you played the older releases. The more recent releases allow you to set your Tamagotchi free to allow it to explore the world, which is a much cuter ending to your friendship. It was interesting experiencing the Tamagotchi for the first time as an adult, and especially during research into seeing how these devices have evolved to a point where there are so many ways of playing. However, the fact that this toy is alive at all and that it has received this many revisions is proof that this gameplay mechanic became something that attracted way too many of us. I definitely look forward to seeing what the future has in store, maybe even USB-C charging for future models. That'd be cool. But as of now, I definitely think it would be interesting to pick one of these up and try it out if you haven't in a while. I'll be leaving affiliate links to all the models that I found interesting in the description, many of which were mentioned in this video. And if you use these links, then you would be supporting the channel at no additional cost to you, so I would appreciate that greatly. This was an awesome experience, and I wanted to take a look at some of the more popular toys throughout the 2000s and 90s, so if you have any suggestions, please make sure to leave them in the comments. Let me know if you liked this as a topic by leaving a like as well. But for an upcoming documentary, I wanted to touch on the current state of what we call retro handhelds very soon, as these are also handheld emulators that allow us to relive parts of our childhood. Lots to talk about there. Now thank you so much for watching. Leave your suggestions in the comments for future bite-sized documentaries, and until next time.